And welcome to the Listen to This Bull live show. My name is Matt Mulholland. That's Remington Huggins, the Huggins Law Firm. We've got a really interesting show for you guys today. If you've never been on this show or seen this show, this is the one where you can ask us questions live because we do it all live. You get to drive the whole conversation, which is awesome. One thing I don't have today, and it's driving me nuts, is a beer. It's crazy. We got Andrew Fusco here with WorldClaim. We're going to talk about claims around the world because they do crazy stuff outside of the U.S. But all I have to do to get everything started is click this button. Andrew, I really appreciate you being on the show. We've been trying to get you guys on the show for a while, and it's my fault. I've lost your card probably 3 times now. Well, other guy's card, Russell's card.
Blame Russell.
Yeah. But he kept trying to push me to talk to you anyway. So we are at the Windstorm Conference in Orlando. There's all kinds of stuff going on behind us. Undoubtedly, someone will interrupt the show to put their face on the screen at some point. It's inevitable. But we want to talk about claims outside of the U.S.
Well, I got a little experience. What do you want to talk about?
I don't know. So I think that the problem is that we don't really know what to expect. I don't know what it's like in other countries. Why don't we start with just talking about what the differences, the major differences are between the U.S. and other places?
I guess they're, like I tell everybody around the world, insurance is the same no matter where you go in the world. It's just when I show up in a different location around the world, the first thing they say is, well, you can't do what you do in the United States here. And insurance is like blackjack. It's the same whether it's here, Macau, or Vegas. It's all the same. So it's just navigating through the nuances of what they don't know. When I tell everybody, if I knew then what I knew now, then is the rest of the world. In order to get the insurance community to recognize any international location, the single criteria is to have a standard fire policy. But we started out with the New York State standard fire policy at 165 lines. I actually, one of the first international places I went after my second hurricane was Guam. I worked in Guam, which is a U.S. territory at the time, but we were dealing with an actual cash value insurance policy, and the entire policy was actually the 165 line New York State standard policy. That's what they issued. They didn't issue any other paper behind it, and their interpretation was difficult. And ironically, when my first experiences back in the day, there were no publications on insurance claims adjusting other than, for all the old folks out there, the Thomas Reed volumes 1 and 2 property loss adjusting. They were the only publications. I think they go back to the 70s. So I'm sitting in a meeting and we're talking about replacement costs, less depreciation, and the guy's got the 2 books in front of him, and he didn't have any idea what actual indemnity. They call it indemnity on the rest of the world, not actual cash value. So They call it indemnity. So I go, can I use the book? Can I see that book right there? So I pick up the book. I open the area of indemnity, actual cash value. I flip it to them. 4 guys look at it. They turn to me and go, that may be what the book says. That's not the way we do it.
Wow.
So that was my first experience of, oh boy, I think we got to learn a little bit about handling claims. Right? Who needs the book?
They brought the book, though, didn't they? It's their book.
It was their book. It was interesting. But the insurance agent was also the adjuster for the insurance company, which was also a unique opportunity to deal with.
Was the adjuster.
Yeah, it was the adjuster for a Chinese insurance company. It was very interesting.
That's very strange.
Definitely a conflict.
You think so?
Definitely a conflict. Like you can't play both sides and double dip on selling a policy as well as adjusting a claim. Come on.
Yeah, it was interesting. It was really, really interesting. And it was my first major earthquake, dealing outside of the squares of the earth or the United States. And it was really interesting. I learned a lot on that event. And, I think after that was the Northridge earthquake, somewhere in between. I did the Northridge.
Were the policies roughly the same?
Again, in Guam, my first claim I handled was they handed me the entire policy, was 165 line New York State standard fire policy. That was it. There was no endorsements. There was nothing else. It was a deck page, and attached to it was 165 lines.
Well, don't they exclude earth movement in that?
Well, No, that's the 165 lines. Well, there was an endorsement for the, yes, I'm sorry. So on that side of the world, let me preface this. Outside of the United States, in just about every corner of the globe that I've worked in, the policies are inclusive. Right? They cover earthquake, tsunami, flood, you name it. It's all in one policy, wrapped under the, over there was wrapped under the New York State fire policy. So everything was included. You didn't have to separate it. It was all one insurer.
I wonder, is there any, I mean, we often have arguments in the U.S. over ambiguity of terms. It's got to be worse when you're talking about translating into a different language on top of that.
Well, it's even worse when you go to the Queen's English. And I went to New Zealand to do earthquake claims in 2010 when they had the earthquakes in Christchurch. They had 5 earthquakes inside a 12-month period and a policy that had 6 pages to it. So when you got to New Zealand and they go, what you do over there, you can't do over here. Oh, here we go again. Another one to say that. Because they fixed your house, your business, your entity. One-off events, the insurance company showed up at a contractor. No one ever asked, can I do it a different way? They fixed your building. So the Christchurch earthquake goes off. They got a fence around the central business district for a year and a half, tearing down 1,100 buildings and took 30,000 homes out of the marketplace. And they hired the insurance in New Zealand after the earthquake had 95% concentration for earthquake because the government covered the first $100,000 on the building and $200,000 on commercial. But after 5 earthquakes, the insurance company sued the earthquake commission and said, hey, you guys got to come up with $100,000 each event. We're out. Well, the inflation of construction and supply and demand surge brought the price of construction up 110% for 5 years. So so those policies needed to renew. And we had a client who couldn't sell their house for $500,000 before the earthquake. They had a $200,000 insurance company offer, and we settled the claim for $1.5 million over 5 events. And then they sold the house damaged for $500,000 because there's no place else to build. They took 30,000 homes out of the marketplace and just left the people stranded there. And they didn't think there was going to be an insurance problem because the insurance company was the biggest thing. So the contractor that they hired to repair all these buildings went bankrupt in 3 years. How does a guy have $1 billion worth of losses and go bankrupt? Well, the employees realized that paint prices have gone up tenfold. So everybody left and opened up a paint shop, opened up their own carpentry shop, and it splintered out this big firm. So then, again, in parts of the world, you get to New Zealand, the New Zealand government decides we're going to do a survey of the whole island, and we think paint prices really should be $1 because that's what they are on other parts that aren't damaged. Wow. So they tried to reduce the inflationary cost of supply and demand so long story short, painters stopped painting. They started hanging drywall because they weren't trying to regulate the price on drywall.
You keep saying inflation. Do you mean gouging?
No, I mean supply and demand. When you're an island in the South Pacific and you generate your own jib or drywall and your own paint, and the government buys the first 1 million square meters of drywall and the first 700,000 gallons of paint, they created the problem for the people, and you just couldn't get the work done. I mean, there's nobody to do the construction. Insurance companies hadn't even looked at properties for over a year, 2 years after the earthquake. And the theory was more people, somebody probably needs it more than I do. They didn't get mad until the 3rd year.
You were only in Guam at that time.
No, anyway. This is Christchurch. This is 5 years ago. This is 2010. This is 2010 to almost last year. We settled our last earthquake claim from the 2010-2011 earthquakes in New Zealand.
Last year you settled that.
Last year I settled my last earthquake claim.
Wow. What's the licensing like?
Well, there's no licensing of it. They call our profession claims preparers. And the beautiful part about the rest of the world is our fees are covered because they don't exclude the claims preparer or the public adjuster. They haven't got to that point yet, right? There's no animosity on that side of the world yet. Although they're all there. There are independent adjusters who work for the carrier. There are public adjusters, and then there are claims preparers that fit in a certain genre. So when I'm in Ecuador doing claims and there's no licensing for adjusters, we come in as consultants and we get anointed hopefully by the insurance commissioner. But in the case of Ecuador, the insurance commissioner came after us. They posted on their website, WorldClaim is an illegal company and you do not hire them if they come see you. So we went and saw the insurance commissioner. So what do you mean? He goes, well, the insurance company called us up and said you guys were bad guys. So we explained what we did. And the next thing you know, he publishes a retraction and says, this is a consulting firm that adds benefit. And if you need help, you should look for companies like this in order to settle your claim.
Awesome.
Now,
all right.
Now there's something going on. He mentioned this earlier, and I said, I don't work in that shift, but I do work in this.
Cheers.
Hey, cheers. Hey, Matt, I don't know if the echo is because you're on a different, like it's hearing me through your thing, but I don't know if it's, I think it might be on your end.
I don't know if I can reduce it unless you can just reduce the volume for us on your end and still hear us.
Okay. As long as it's doable, that's all.
You could also turn down your microphone feed, the dial on that, and see if that'll reduce it as well. Just make sure you talk to me so I can see if you can still hear you. Say something.
Okay. Yep, I'm talking right now.
I can still hear you just as well if you turned it down. And Tony says it's better already. There we go. Thanks, Max.
Okay. Perfect. Hey, this is interesting because I had some of these questions I have written down, and Matt, you're asking some of them like, are they licensed over there? Do they have license adjusters? And one of the things I had is everything a fight? And it seems like if they're paying your public adjusting fee, everything's not a fight. It's not there yet, like you were saying. It seemed like it's not as combative on every claim. But that's just, I'm reading between the lines here.
No, you're reading between the lines. They not just because they cover the fees don't mean they pay them. They like to pay them because their policies say they have to approve them first, and they say we didn't approve them. And listen, we're dealing with the same characters, right? So when I'm in New Zealand, I'm still dealing with Swiss Re, Munich Re, QBE, Lloyd's of London, and I'm saying to my counterparts there, you guys know the answers. We just had this case in New York, right? Or we had it in Chicago. You're still Swiss Re. You're still the Lloyd's of London, right? You guys know the answers, but they didn't go through the court system. When I got to New Zealand, the insurance council said we're the most, on their website, it said we're the most unregulated insurance industry in the world. And unlike the United States, our cost to handle claims is very low. Yeah. So you have 5 earthquakes that hit inside a year, and you found out what it was like to try and handle claims the way we all are dealing with catastrophic events. And their price of admission went up tenfold. So they learned a hard lesson. The insurance company for the government went out of business, had to be segregated out. And they realized that insurance claims are handled differently now. And I think I'd like to believe we had a whole lot to do about what that happened in New Zealand.
It's a really strange way of performing imperialism. We are taking over the world slowly, claim by claim, and changing them all to the U.S. Did they accuse you of acting as an attorney at all?
No.
Interpreting policy wasn't an issue?
No. Listen, in New Zealand, no one had ever read the policy. So the earthquake, the head of Tower Insurance Company, who was appointed after the Christchurch earthquake, was a banker the year before. And the first time I met with them and I handed him the policy, I go, have you read the policy? And he goes, no. I go, well, there's not a whole lot here. I can read it to you if you want. But I mean, automatic reinstatement memorandum, policy reinstates itself. It's it's an indemnity policy with reinstatement value. So we had reinstatement cost and an automatic reinstatement. It was like a sea of insurance. It was mega insurance amounts of insurance. They had no idea how to administer not only just one event, but then you had to have 5 earthquakes and separate them out over each event to determine the magnitude of damage so that they could separate them out over each one of their EQCs.
Were they ever receptive to you kind of training them on what to do?
Oh, no. They fought it tooth and nail because they didn't like our whole system of the United States.
They didn't want to be the U.S.
They don't want to be the
It's
U.S.
like other states not wanting to be Florida right now.
Yeah, I don't blame them there, but yeah, but the same avenue, right? They didn't want to believe that the system was broken and that it should go this way. And the last thing they wanted to do was hear about it from a group of Americans. Now, I was there a year before my first, competitor showed up, and then it added some more validity to what we were doing. And, it started the process moving. But we filed one of the first legal cases against the insurance company they had this place called the Red Zone. They determined that all of the land underneath the buildings needed to come out and was destroyed, but they didn't want to total out your house. So the liquefaction destroyed our foundations, and the houses were standing and the buildings were standing, down and tilted a little bit. And they said, well, what's the damage? There's no foundation. How about there? So we had to fight that whether or not they were constructive total losses. And they went through court system after court system. There was one insurance precedent on the books before the earthquake. Now there's like a whole plethora. Now we know what replacement cost is. We know what indemnity is. We know how to multiple events. We know the policy reinstates itself. All the things that you can read as a layman and go, guys, we're reading the same policy, right? And it's pretty simple. It wasn't simple, but we got through it. It's navigating through, and I believe that New Zealand's a better place to handle claims now. Just like every other place we bring the trade to and help locals navigate through a system that we're now fluid in, right? So it's been a great opportunity and a great career to go around to these jurisdictions and be helpful.
Sounds like the claims take longer in general because you're getting pushback on everything, but until they get the system down.
Well, first they come after you, right? They come after the company, the individual. And no matter where I go in the world, the first place I stop is the insurance office, the insurance commissioner's office. I've already read the insurance law. I can cite the insurance codes. I want them to be, welcoming us. I went to Nepal in Kathmandu at the earthquakes at the the earthquakes at Mount Everest. And we went into the insurance commissioner's office. We told them what we did, and oh my God, you want to believe the warmth and the hugs and the handshakes and the photographs until I started handling some cases. Then the insurance companies called them up and goes, how'd you let these guys in? What do you mean they're good guys? You can't. They're fighting back.
Oh my God.
So they get in a situation where they almost have to retract, where they're going with it. When the theory is they're there to help the insurance community at large and the people, right? So the integrity of the process to make sure that the insurance industry moves, but more so to protect the people's interests. So it was we run with that situation all the time, and we endure and we overcome because ultimately we show that there's a different path to recovery that you didn't know about before we got it.
It's crazy. It feels like a reset. Like if the U.S. suddenly reset its insurance laws, what it might be like here if they decided to also not read the policy, I guess.
Yeah, funny thing, you can settle insurance claims without reading the policy. So apparently, we tell everybody first thing you do, RTP, read the policy.
Read the full policy, policy. But yeah, that's funny. So question from Tony DiUlio, an attorney friend of mine. Now for my question, whenever you get to it. What can we as a country learn from how other countries do insurance claims?
Actually, we're the leader in recovery. I'll be honest with you. Yeah, and
no kidding. I didn't expect that.
1,000%. The United States is the leader in recovery, in my opinion.
Does that mean you like doing claims in the U.S. better too?
I personally don't like doing claims better in the United States because I believe what my company is doing is helping those people who started where I did in the 80s with an actual cash value policy know how to get to where we are now. We've litigated every phase of the policy. Like I said to you, when I'm on the other side of the world, I'm dealing with Lloyd's of London. I go, this argument. We just had this at a factory in Chicago.
Is that what you do though? You find a carrier like Lloyd's of London that is international, and those are the ones you litigate in order to get the processes down?
No. I go to the people with the biggest problems and help them solidify it. I don't care who their carrier is because they didn't know before they had a problem, right?
Sure.
Who the carrier is. We spent the last 4 years in Beirut working in the port of Beirut for the explosion in the ammonium nitrate. And we're battling threefold problem. We have a potential either political risk or war claim. So there's a dispute over that. We're dealing with an economy that was devastated just prior to COVID because the government ran out of U.S. dollars, so they locked up all the U.S. dollars. Then we have COVID, then we have an explosion. So we're dealing with economic crisis, we're dealing with currency fluctuation, and 99% of the policies had U.S. dollar policies. So check this out.
Really? U.S. dollar policies?
And we see that all over the world. The reason everybody in the entire world, no matter where you are, insures in U.S. dollars because it protects them against the fluctuation of the currencies in their country, and it's more standardized in the insurance community.
Our currency is more stable than the rest of the world.
Well, think about this. So now I'm back in Beirut, right? So you locked up all the US dollars.
Uh-huh.
So if you had 5 million US dollars in the account, the most you can pull out is $500 a month. But you could change it. You could give me 5 million to secure debt. If I owed you 5 million, you could transfer it inside the banking system. You just can't get it out. They've locked up the money. Now the US, now the reinsured
Feels
money.
like some Great Depression shit, man.
Oh, this is crazy. So now the reinsured money's coming in.
Okay.
And they call that fresh money. So that has full US dollar value. As far as I'm concerned, the money is locked up in the bank has no par value anymore because they stole it, right? So now the fresh money's coming in and the inflation's going through the roof. So when I got there, the Lebanese pound was fixed at 2,500 Lebanese dollars to the Lebanese pounds to the US dollar. We were trading Lebanese pounds at 30,000 to the US dollar. So think about fresh dollars coming and what you can do with that. And retiring debt with fresh money because everybody was in trouble. So the insurance companies,
the banks are running some kind of a Ponzi scheme on top of all this. They
Not
got
the
new
banks.
money coming in for the first. It's not the banks.
Well, the banks already ran the Ponzi scheme. They gave the insurance.
It's already been done.
The money's gone. But now you got the insurance companies bringing fresh dollars and paying out claimants in Lebanese pounds in check, keeping the fresh money.
Oh,
yes.
Okay.
So before I got there, my clients were accepting settlements that weren't in US dollars, even though the policy said so. And the argument from the insurance companies was, well, you paid us in Lebanese pounds, so we're paying you back in Lebanese pounds. It's not my first rodeo. It happened to us in Mexico. And
wow.
And it's a US dollar policy. You owe it. So when we told the insurance companies, you got to pay in US dollars, we upset the apple cart there. we really upset the apple cart. And then they stopped taking money.
Question soon. It's a damn good question, but I'm enjoying the stories more than anything else. This is crazy. The fresh money thing is interesting because the carriers get to hold on to it and they know that it's more stable if it's in their hands. It's in their bank accounts, probably overseas, in the US maybe.
Well, no. These are all NASCO, French companies, offshore carriers, but they're bringing in that money and they're retiring their own debt with it. And paying it out in Czech or Lebanese pounds. So we stopped that.
I wouldn't even thought about that
immediately.
That wouldn't have even been on my radar.
Well, in the international marketplace, because of unstable environments, it's all U.S. money. It's all U.S. dollar policies.
So I've got a few buddies, and I think Remington knows a few guys too, that had some dealings in Puerto Rico.
Yep.
And the stories that we get back from them have a lot more to do with almost like mob rule type situations where you're not one of us, you shouldn't be here. We'll deny claims for those reasons. Do you have that kind of issue, or did you have that in Puerto Rico for one thing?
Well, those people, your colleagues, that was their first rodeo in Puerto Rico. I was there during Hurricane Hugo, Hurricane Georges in 89 and 2006. So like navigating outside the four corners of the United States, you're a fish out of water if you're in somebody else's kitchen and you don't understand what's going on. I was fluid in that community. So I didn't have, sure, we had some claims that were bad, but we had a great experience in Puerto Rico. We settled a tremendous amount of our claims early on. We got most of our money out of the insurance companies for our clients before they went bankrupt because we recognized it. In every event, someone's going bankrupt. So when I got to Puerto Rico, I walked into the president's office in Real Legacy 2 days after the hurricane. I go, "You guys have enough money?" He goes, "Oh, don't worry about us. We paid our $5 million deductible, and we ordered $100 million." I go, "I've got $100 million worth of claims with you, and I just got here." So I walked down the island with $100 million worth of claims with this carrier, and I told my clients, I said, they're in trouble. This whole island is damaged, and as we were looking at them, the policies had no restrictions. There was no co-insurance. Everything was agreed value. Such a soft market, there was no way for them to sustain a payout of that magnitude, insuring the risks that they were insuring because they were all total losses.
You personally put an insurance carrier out of business?
No, we got our money out. Everybody else put them out of business. My clients got paid. My clients are fine. My clients are fine.
Yeah, that's what being a fiduciary really is.
Listen, you got to know you had to know your risk, right? We assessed it early. We knew they were in trouble, and we told our clients early on, you need to get it at this carrier quickly because they're not going to last. And that's across the board. Every event we go to, we lose at least one or two insurance companies. And you have to recognize them early. who's got the biggest exposure with the least amount of money and get it and get out as quick as possible for your clients so they get paid. Otherwise, they get caught up in the system.
I'm overwhelmed. I don't even know what else to ask you. There's too many routes to go down.
Let me ask a legal question, I guess, in a sense. And I've been on the record, and Matt would agree. I'm not every claim's bad faith. I'm just not about that. Okay. But is there bad faith damages like there was, let's just say, in Florida 5 years ago? Is there something similar to that in other countries, or is that just a moot point and it's really not a thing in other countries?
Well, don't forget, in the rest of the world, it's loser pays, right? So when you're in New Zealand and
The
you're in
rest of the world,
and
all of them.
yeah, you go to the UK, it's loser pays. You go to Australia, loser pays, and it hurts the policyholder to not be able to fight. You know, you lose, you litigate a $5 million loss and you lose, and then you want to appeal it. They go, okay, well, they spent $250,000 fighting you, so you have to give them that $250,000, and then they think it's going to cost you another $250,000 to fight the appeal, so you put that up in fixtures. So you're $500,000 out of pocket just on a litigation where just to get the appeal in. So they discourage that process, but you know they have to be litigated. COVID-19 business interruption, Hiscox policies in the UK. The insurance commissioner's office realized that there was a flaw in the policy, so they litigated the cases on behalf of the policyholder in order to right a wrong, because they knew that it would be arduous litigation, and they won. So now a bunch of people in the UK now have coverage for COVID-19 business interruption.
Wow.
But you know, when we go around the world, everybody goes, "Oh, we don't want to go to litigation. It could take years." I go, listen. They're now taking years to settle. The litigation is on top of that. So one of my Beirut cases, we got the insurance company. We settled a major claim for about $30 million. And part of the settlement was in Czech and Lebanese pounds instead of US dollars. So our client took the money under duress. And while we were doing that, we found COVID-19 business interruption coverage in his policy. And they said, you need to not pursue that claim in order for us to pay on this one. I'm like, well, you can't do that.
Might be extortion.
That might be extortion. I said, do yourself a favor, sign it, get the $30 million, and we'll fight backwards. So we're now going after an insurance company in Lebanon for fraud, and we're suing them for that under the legal recourse of a criminal act for $150 million for COVID-19 business interruption. So I convinced my client that, listen, right is right. I don't care where you are in the world. You have a system. It should work. So let's make sure it does for you and your company.
Sounds like you have a ton of exposure as a company. When you go into another country, there's a lot of money you probably need to have on hand, cash flowed, in order to make this work. What should someone that wanted to try out going overseas, what should they have put aside? How much do you think would be a minimum requirement?
It depends on where you want to go and the size of the event you're going to, right? You need to have enough horsepower for this, to mobilize your teams, to live away from the world and get them out of there if you need them to, right? Oh. So I've worked in Panama, Ecuador, El Salvador, Chile, Spain, Kathmandu. You get a team member caught somewhere in the world, you need to be able to get them out of there. So,
what do you mean by caught? Like,
well, I had guys in Lebanon working when Netanyahu said that if one bomb comes out of Hezbollah, he's going to turn Rafiki Airport into a parking lot. We got our people out there real quick. So until the tensions come down, and you know, we're in the same places of the world that these people are suffering, right? So we live the way they do. We live through the turmoil, and if there's a problem, you need to get them out. And those are in those type of countries. But even, think about having a team member in New Zealand get sick. You're 26 hours back in New York if you're lucky. So it's a very expensive opportunity, and the risk is enormous. So unless you have the thirst for risk and have the ability to lose, because we don't win on all of these, but we always pick something out of each one of these events that either has helped the community or helped us grow as a company and learn how to help people in different jurisdictions around the world. So it is the highest risk in claims adjusting. Stay in Florida, handle a bunch of a bunch of claims because they come every year. You know, we try and change the footprint of recovery globally.
Jeez, do you charge a shit ton?
Let's say I charge this. I charge
Yes.
we don't charge any more than 10% anywhere in the world.
What?
I don't
Even with
charge
that risk?
any more than 10%. My job is to put the money in the hands of the policyholder. And if I become a burden on the system,
you've got expenses.
I've
and
got
risk.
listen,
Wow, that's
we-
impressive.
we
I didn't expect
we get
that
paid a
answer.
reasonable. I don't like to overcharge for my services. I believe we perform a service, and we literally the goal is to get this money in the policyholder's hands. And if we rape and pillage the coverage and the
But
systems,
you said you get paid on top of it anyway.
I get paid at the end. Well, no,
It still comes out of the coverage.
no. I say the coverage is in there around the world. If you're seated there, it's easier to get paid through the policy. I don't go that route.
Okay.
I'm not going to fight Bankers Insurance Company in Lebanon to say that my fees are reasonable. My client paid the fees and was happy to do it. If they didn't pay them, that's fine. They can get the other things under the policy that we can cover, the accounting fees and things like that. We put those in. My fees in other parts of the world, we do charge them, and then we get a success fee. So if we have the claims preparation, our costs are covered there, and then we'll get a success fee, but no more than 10%.
Overall.
No. If the success, if the
Success
policy
is 10%
covers,
on top of your claims preparation.
right, as long as it doesn't
So
come out of the
your
insurance
costs on
policy.
that, I got it.
Again,
That seems more reasonable.
my goal is to put the money in the hands of the policyholder, and we as public adjusters can make a really, really good living at 10%, no matter where you are in the world, if we're handling the losses like we're handling.
Those kind of losses, I'm sure. Yeah. Wow. So what is your win percentage, you think? Overall, worldwide.
Well,
You're saying you don't lose, you don't win all of them.
Oh, in terms
outside
of
the
events,
Yeah.
we're 80-20 on events around the world.
That's not terrible. There's a lot of PAs in the U.S. that are 80-20.
Yeah, there are
I
a
mean,
lot.
it's because they're taking on claims they shouldn't take on most of the time.
But finding good like Chile has the best dispute resolution system on the planet.
Okay.
You have a dispute with the insurance company. The insurance commissioner's office has a 3-person panel. Tribunal.
Okay.
You submit you sit in front of them. You present your case to the tribunal. The insurance company presents your case, and they go, you win, you lose. That's it.
Sounds like arbitration.
There's no haggling over the amount of money.
It's a win-lose scenario.
It's win or lose.
Wow.
It's win or lose, and if it's against the insurance company, they assess a 10% penalty. We are 3 for 3 in front of the insurance commissioner's office.
It'd be easy to do that. I feel like that would be easy.
It's a great
Remington,
resolution.
we need
system.
to set some legislation up. We want to get this passed as soon as possible. There really is. There's tribunals built into most states for violating unfair claim settlement practices, and then the insurance commissioner's office has basically a tribunal type of scenario in order to, once they investigate, determine that there is a systemic issue where they're violating that on a regular basis. They have a way of doing fees. We could adapt that to have interaction with the policyholder, so there's a win-lose. That'd be freaking cool.
Win-lose is the only way, right? Because the getting that we turned insurance adjusting into insurance science. This is supposed to be a give and take between two parties that come up with a search for the truth to get a fair and reasonable settlement. Now we've turned it into forensic and science and all of these things that it's not supposed to be in order to adjust the loss. They call it insurance adjusting for a reason. They never called it insurance science. So two qualified individuals.
I feel like you're hurting me personally right now for some reason.
Well, no, two qualified individuals should be able to get in the room and resolve a claim as long as they have the expertise to do so. We lack the expertise.
I agree. I mean, getting a third party involved is just leaving someone else to lay the blame on. Anyway, it's his fault kind of a scenario. They're always passing the buck. That's what passing the buck.
And you don't want to split the babies, and it's not fair to the policyholder when you get to that situation. We got to get back to insurance adjusting and educating both sides of the fence on how to adjudicate a claim fairly, reasonably, in a reasonable period of time. Sounds easy, right?
Do you have threats in other country, like bodily harm of any kind?
We did in Nepal only because of the unions. We did a bunch of hotels, and these hotels were badly damaged. Well, the longer the hotel is damaged, the bigger opportunity to break the union. So the unions thought that we were an impediment to the recovery because we kept going in and out. So we literally had to meet with the head of the union and go, without us getting these guys the money, you guys aren't going back to work. So once they realized that we were the good guys, they were like, hey, let these guys in, let's help them get their job done so we can get the claim resolved. But other than that, I've worked in Panama and El Salvador. We had, it's just different. Navigating through those systems is vigilance, right? As long as you're a traveler and understand where you are, and you're vigilant where your surroundings are, the world's a great opportunity.
How many mobs have you had to pay off?
Now, fortunately,
Matt,
we've been very fortunate.
Maybe we don't force him to answer that one just in case.
I got to say this. When Andrew was like, Chile has the best, dispute resolution process.
Ecuador.
I was
Chile?
thinking.
You did say Chile.
I said Chile. I meant Ecuador.
Okay.
I meant Ecuador. I'm
okay,
sorry.
Ecuador.
I said Chile. I meant
All
Ecuador.
the same.
Sorry.
I was getting pumped here. I was thinking like you, instead of naming your appraiser, you name your arm wrestler. Like, this is gonna be my arm wrestler. The winner gets paid. I thought it was gonna be something cool like that was gonna happen, or
that would be amazing.
That would work too.
Trial
A
by
3-chair arbitration at the end of the day. What's that, Andrew?
No, I'm with you. But listen, if either party's not prepared when they walk into that room, it should be win or lose, right? If you can't articulate your case in front of a tribunal that understands it, then they're gonna pick somebody's side, and as they should.
No, it's like umpire work, where you. It's not even on the differences. It's one is right and one is wrong. They don't split the baby. That's Ecuador, or that's most countries.
That is Ecuador's dispute resolution system. But again, when I got to Ecuador, the insurance commissioner put on his website, companies like WorldClaim cannot operate here in Ecuador. And then he retracted that after we met with them. And now that former insurance commissioner is a consultant of ours in Ecuador. He's our liaison to the commissioner's office now, because under his tenures, we've won 3 cases.
Do you have translators running around with all your guys?
Well, I have a Latin team. So in all for South America, we have a full team out of Madrid that services Latin America, Mexico. And unfortunately, I'm not bilingual, but I've worked in Latin America for 35 of my 40 years.
How are you not bilingual?
I don't know. I always had a good translator.
I assumed he was.
No.
I figured like 4 or 5 languages minimum.
I wish.
How is Australia?
If I had to live anywhere outside of the United States, it would be Australia.
I'm with you.
It is the most welcoming community of people, melting pot around the world, an eclectic crowd with that embraces you. Unlike New Zealand. New Zealand's a beautiful country, but you don't want to be an American doing business there. They don't like us as a country since the Second World War. Whole long story. I don't even want to tell you.
World Wars. That'll do it.
They said we shagged all their women back then.
Did we?
Apparently.
So there's a lot of, 23andMe could really tell us, probably, right?
I've been telling you. But yeah, listen, this is a long time ago. Why are young guys still mad at us for that?
I don't know. Guys,
let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. Like in any other country where there's a hurricane, do they have those deductibles that we see in Florida and some of the other states?
Wind deductibles, hurricane deductibles?
They didn't.
Hurricane deductibles, percentages.
They're just getting them, percentage deductibles in most places around the world. Outside the Caribbean, we've had them there for a while, but around the rest of the world, we're getting some percentage deductibles for sure.
I was wondering that. And one of the other questions I had was about, exclusions for virus and so forth. It seems like here in the States, for the most part, everybody was in front of it, the carriers, right? They saw something like that coming, such as COVID. It sounds like in some of the other countries that's something that was not an exclusion in policy. So, especially if you...
So to be clear on COVID, 80% of the policies in the world absolutely exclude COVID-19 business interruption and COVID-19 claims or virus claims. 10% bought the coverage. The other 10% made a mistake. That's the jurisdiction. Those jurisdictions are now just paying are just now going through the court system. So you're
Yeah.
4 years later after the event's defined, and now the courts have said now they can be paid. So you've got hundreds of thousands of people in jurisdictions around the world that are going to get paid, but you're not going to find those in the United States. Those are few and far between.
I feel like you probably got some good insight on this. Do you think insurance companies are too big to fail?
No. In general, no, because we see them failing all the time. And another one pops up.
Sure.
And I think the industry, as it changes, is going to find, cat bonds are making more money now than they ever did. So there's a lot of money out there putting up risk in catastrophic areas. So I think that's good for us, right? More investors getting into cat bonds that aren't, triggering. So as far as I'm concerned, they're in the casino. Everyone's putting quarters in, and their hedge hasn't got hit yet. Their bond hasn't got hit. So the more money that comes into the marketplace is good for us. It helps the reinsurers get more opportunity to reinsure, and we need to diversify the risk. But the system has to work, and it has to provide the indemnity that the insureds paid for, and that is the goal of all of the people here. Should be saying, I want to get the money to the policyholder instead of raping and pillaging from the system for our own personal gain. And you say to me, 10% is all you charge. I think that's a fair rate.
Sure, it depends on the claim. If you're talking about a $12,000 claim and you're putting up a lot of risk, 10% probably isn't going to be worth it.
Well, if you're doing a $12,000
claim, you shouldn't be doing $12,000 claims outside the country. Well, it doesn't make any sense,
right? But you're in Florida, you can do a whole street of those and not have a risk.
That's true.
Do a fair job because you're not going out.
There are, my company charged 15%. Or 25% of new money, depending on it. But it was in Georgia, and Georgia is a much tougher state with very few consumer protection laws. Claims took longer. There was higher risk involved. There was more money involved. I had to do a bigger job. I couldn't just hand it off to an attorney. Although Remington was going to kick ass if I handed it to him, I really had to tee it up for him in order for, not because you suck, Remington. I wasn't saying that. Just to be completely clear, but because that's just the way things work. So in certain areas, it's easier and less costly to run a claim. Florida, up until recently, and potentially still now, is a little bit easier to make money, and 10% makes sense for that state, but it's not true for every state. The reason I'm even harping on this is because there is this push right now with the NAIC to set a cap on public adjusting. And I don't really think that's a good idea. I think the states should have the ability to make their own decisions on that.
Well, respectfully, Remington, if you want to put a cap on something, it should be on legal fees. There's no disrespect, but I mean, the public adjusting end, we have state minimums, right? State minimums. New York State is 12.5%. It used to be 15, went down to 12.5. So the question is how do you help the smaller claimants navigate through this process? That's the unknown, right? Because you're right. They need the most help. Well, I don't say they need the most help. They need the big claims to do too, but getting through those, it takes more to handle a $12,000 loss than a $12 million loss.
The investigation is a little longer than the $12 million loss.
Yeah, but you're trying to get somebody to pay, $200 more for something. It's a big percentage of a claim. And the people are entitled to
that money matters more to those people a lot of times too, though.
It matters a tremendous amount to those people. And that's the rub. That's the biggest problem we encounter. The big claims you can make money on, you can do a lot of things, but how do you help the single policyholder get through that process?
Do me a favor, look right at the camera just so it captures your eye, because it doesn't want to get mine and refocus. Oh, it hates it. That camera. Come on, thing.
This is great.
Whatever.
Maybe it's not the camera. Maybe it's us.
It's probably us. The people in the background are way prettier, for sure.
Hey, Andrew, Hey, Matt, I had a quick question real quick. Do they, and this is just interesting, it's fascinating, do they use engineers in other countries like they do here in America?
Well, they did in New Zealand, right? So that let's go back up. In New Zealand, they learned all of the things that happen in the United States. We had people coming there with low mobility grout that said that we could lift the building up and tilt it back to making it right. And that was every Shylock in the world came with an elixir, a fixer. And then we got into the engineering. So yes, they did, but as adjusters, it's our job.
Expanding foam.
Yeah, expanding foam. So I would walk into all these meetings and say, well, we have an engineer here. He's going to give us an opinion. I go, an opinion of what? Let's start with what your opinion's on, right? Well, the building's cracked. Okay, the building's cracked. How about, can you build it the way it was originally constructed back to new? So if you can't answer that question, you might as well leave. So that was the biggest thing. First, they thought that the engineers were the end-all answer in New Zealand, but they do use them. But they don't use estimators. They use quantity surveyors. And you have to go to school for 4 years to teach somebody to do it. We teach an Xactimate class in 3 days. So how length, height, width. I mean, you actually have a degree in quantity surveying. And that is a guesstimate of what it's going to cost, like anything else. So before you build a building from scratch, you get a quantity surveyor. It says, hey, you need, 8 tons of concrete. You need so many studs. You need all this. And he's about right, or maybe not about right.
Is it a better system, you think?
No.
Not even close.
No,
I got excited about that for a second.
No, I used to tell the quantity surveyor, listen, you guys spent 4 years learning how to quantify how many bricks are in this building. We can teach somebody that in 3 days in Xactimate class.
Yeah.
So stop there.
So Badger keeps trying to get additional education for public adjusters if it's necessary. And sure, public adjusters do need more training. Or at events like this. But estimators having additional training or the vendors or the engineers having additional training, that might be probably the better avenue in many ways if the experts are.
Well, let's go back to, this is an insurance policy and the adjuster should have the control over the scope that is based upon the terms and conditions of the policy. And the math should be done by just about anybody, right? It's a mathematical equation. Our job is to use the contract to come up with that median price range to get the claim settled in a fair and reasonable manner. So the estimators are the mathematical equation to the scope that we put together that we believe is compensable in the policy. It's my opinion of how I adjust the loss. I don't really want to hire somebody who's going to go out and make that assumption for me that I've got to then go argue on behalf of my client or the policy, unless he's educated in policy. And the first thing they say, we're not here to talk about the policy. Well, then don't write a report that's going to mess up my claim. Right?
That's right.
Instruct your engineer correctly under the terms and conditions of the policy so that we're not fighting about why his report's wrong later.
I'm really surprised we don't have a ton of questions from the audience right now. This is crazy stuff. Give us some advice. What would you give, kind of advice would you give to somebody that wants to venture out of the U.S. for the first time?
First thing you do is go to insurance. First of all, before you leave your house, read the State Department website on the country of origin to make sure you can navigate through there safely and efficiently. And then go to the insurance department's website and read the entire code from end to end so that you're not walking in to someone else's backyard trying to spew stateside venom in a location that doesn't work. We had claimants, we had a group come over to New Zealand from the States after we got there. Like, oh, we're going to litigate all these cases like we did in the States. Yeah. No, you're not. Because you're going to pay fixtures and the system just wasn't set up for that. So understand the location you're going, navigate through there, and read the insurance information. It's there.
Our contracts, our policies, contracts of adhesion, do you have the same ambiguity type rules in other states or other countries?
So the first time, when I was in New Zealand and I gave the guy the 6-page policy, and I was explaining to him what I knew the language of that policy emphatically said, right? Because we litigated. The guys look at me, they go, this is a contract of adhesion, right? And they all looked at me like I was crazy. I learned my first Latin term, contra preferendum. I go, oh, is that the one where you wrote the policy, any ambiguities are construed against you? He said, yes. I go, okay, contra preferendum. So the term is the same. It's contra preferendum, but they are a contract of adhesion. Absolutely, any ambiguity is construed against that.
And that's most countries.
Most countries.
That's good news.
Yes, it's fantastic. It's been very helpful for us.
Remington, I think that you could probably pass the bar in other countries, and then I could go to Australia and have an excuse and take on some claims. Right?
Well, I have an office there, so if you want to go over there and work, let me know.
Yeah,
Let's go hang
you
out.
joke, but since I met you guys, I'm so intrigued. I would love to do that. There's no way in hell I have the time for it. But man, I want to. That's fucking cool.
I'll tell you what, I'm going over in a couple weeks. Come on over with me. I'll show you a program that's pretty cool.
Yeah?
Come on over. We have a fluid system over there.
Just want to take him up on it. I'm gonna have to get a passport. I don't have a passport. How sad is
Start
that?
there.
40 years old, no passport. Any dealings in Dubai from Keith?
I haven't. I've been to Dubai. I haven't worked there yet. It's on my radar. We wanted to go there. Lebanon gave us a springboard to the Middle East, so we now have we're negotiating a deal with a local partner over there with depth in the space. And now Dubai's on my radar. It's doable. Listen, the last 5 major high-rise fires in the world were in Dubai.
Is there coverage for Godzilla-like events in Japan?
I don't know, but they do have an earthquake system similar to New Zealand, but only a small amount of money. No Godzilla coverage.
No Godzilla coverage.
Would that? I think that'd be like terrorism. All right. Is there terrorism exclusion?
We do a lot in the rest of the world. Political risk is a big coverage. We do a lot of political risk claims around the world, where you're buying coverage for that risk. That's what the difference between coverage in Lebanon was. Is it political risk, or is it just an all risk situation? So did somebody cause that explosion on a war-like basis for them to exclude it, or was it covered under the all risk policy? We argued that if it was Israel, you would have known about it, right? So somebody actually created, and that's what they thought it might have been. So absent of an outfall party, we said it should fall under the all risk. And in this policy, the only onus on the insured to prove it is if they have to prove it's not an act of war. There's only 6 pages in the policy, and that specific exclusion under that, in order to have coverage, is we have to prove as the insured there was no war.
And war would involve like government saying that they are going to war. There has to be a declaration, right?
Theoretically, but the courts of New Zealand or of Lebanon won't take a stance either way. So
anybody could declare war from that country without the government saying it?
Pretty much, because it's a crazy system over there. So without the government making a stance one way or another, insurance companies have taken the position of, hey, if you have war, if my coverage for my hotel for war was $30 million, the coverage for my hotel for all risk was $170 million. So they wanted to
have all risk anyway.
I wanted to have all risk, and they wanted to put it. So they were saying that we'll operate under a non-waiver agreement, but the most we'll pay is up to the political risk amount under the all risk policy.
Political risk.
Because if it's more than that and it's determined political risk later, we'd be on the hook.
Wow.
So it was fraud in the inducement. It's part of our claim against the carrier on that.
Yeah, I mean they're collecting premiums based on the 100 and something million, and would never have the coverage for it.
It's not an act of war. Listen, this stuff was poorly. It was seized in 2014 from a Syrian ship coming in there. It was stored for 20 years poorly, and it's ammonium nitrate. It was a horrible accident in our opinion. So full coverage should apply to everybody in Lebanon.
But it isn't.
But it isn't. It isn't.
Who do they think did it if it's an act of war?
Then nobody knows. Nobody will say. And that was our whole argument. Well, if no one's saying it, if someone did this, they would have said, it was me.
Right.
I'll take responsibility for that. But the damage was mind-boggling. It was just unbelievable.
That's crazy. It was the Chihuahuas. They're evil.
Fascinating, for sure. You would think like a state of emergency, like a governor declares. I mean, there's got to be something, right? Or, I mean, there's got to be some type of black and white definition of war. You would think, just like there should be damage in a policy, but there's not. So it's up for debate. That's what it's about.
And it's a contract adhesion, so maybe it's ambiguous.
Well,
it sounds like war is ambiguous.
There you go.
No, war it is over there.
Everything is fair in love and war, I've heard too.
Right.
And so that makes policies fair when they don't cover war. Or the other way around.
War is excluded everywhere in the world, right?
That's
War is a common exclusion. So they wanted to hang their hat on it, and I just thought it was ironic that they put the onus of proving that it's not a war on the policyholder. So we gave them every possible publication proving. The French courts or the UK courts have given leave for somebody to file suit against an at-fault party outside of Lebanon. So other jurisdictions have determined that it's not an act of war, including France, which is their biggest, overseer. Because if you don't speak Lebanese, you speak French or English. So the French government's got a lot to say. And the money that the world wants to give Lebanon would help them, but because Lebanese won't sort out their own politics, nobody wants to give them the money. So the insurance money is the most important economic driver since the explosion.
So do or don't go to Lebanon.
Well, go to Lebanon because Lebanon is an amazing place, and Lebanese people are absolutely amazing people going through a horrific time. So Lebanon, in my book, is a special spot in the world. You want to handle claims in Lebanon, put your big kid pants on because you're in deep waters, and fortunately, we're able to navigate through those.
So where would someone go if they're still wearing diapers?
Yeah. You'd want to start in probably Australia.
That's where I want to start anyway.
Listen, I'm taking anybody who wants to work in Australia, give me a call. I'm taking applications for just about every location in the world right now.
Remington, I could shut this thing down any second and just go to Australia. Everything there will try to kill me. That moves.
I want to see if I can wade into Australia. Let's get this figured out.
Come on in.
Dude.
Come on in.
Something there. Yeah, I really appreciate it. The stories that you have are unbelievable. I wish I knew more people that were doing what you're doing, but
I'm happy they're not.
You're a trailblazer.
I'm happy they're not.
Yeah, I bet you are.
I'm so happy they're not.
But there's so many places.
Now, listen,
You're never going to have enough competition to matter.
Now, there shouldn't be, but like I said, anybody who's looking to go, reach out to me. I'm happy to give. I like telling stories about where we worked all over the world, explain what we've gone through, how we've gone through, and get in there. But they need our help. They need the expertise. It is, there's one public adjuster in Africa, South Africa, a monopoly in the whole country. Wow. One public adjuster. So our services are needed. Our understanding of recovery is far superior than the rest of the world. Some of these countries are just getting mitigation contractors. So
What have they done up till now? Box fans?
They did nothing.
Wow.
They did nothing.
Towels.
That's about what it was.
They have a lot of towels.
When I got in the business, that's what it was. Nobody mitigated these things. You figured out what the long-term damage was and estimated it, and they were actual cash value policies.
That is crazy.
Wow.
I started in 1980.
Last question.
Yeah.
Do corporations, let's just say like Jamaica, sandals? I don't know if you've ever been there. I'm just using an example.
I worked there.
More self-insured in other countries than there is in America?
No, because the rates they're still able to experience good rates in a lot of places unless they have catastrophic events. I mean, the first captive we set up for one of our clients was after Hurricane Hugo in Antigua. The owner of the resort realized that his $70,000 premium went to $400,000 over that time period. So we set up a captive and he protected himself. But it's in the there's the rest of the world it's just different.
It's just different.
Fascinating. Love it.
So
Come on down.
If you want to do this, you should probably take advantage of the offer to go to Australia, because that sounds awesome. And even I am extremely tempted, more than you guys probably realize.
By the way, South America, all of South America.
South America.
All of South America is an opportunity.
Wow. Well,
I think your hat would go a long way over there in Australia, by the way, Matt.
I look like I belong there.
I think you can do it. I think you can do it.
I think that
change the Guinness out for a Foster's and let it go, man. You'd be good to go.
I can't do that.
That's a deal breaker. No.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. No. I could go in the bush, but I'm not drinking Foster's. I mean, Foster's isn't bad, but I'm not giving up Guinness. That's the reality. All right, cool. Oh, thanks for being on. I bet we have a lot of people watching this one later on. You'll probably have a lot of people reaching out to you. How can they get a hold of you?
1-800-470-4700 or worldclaim.net. Reach out through to our website and reach out to me. And I'd love to talk to anybody who's interested in working anywhere in the world. We have operations going on 4 continents right now.
That's amazing. You need to be on 7. The second you start doing oh my God,
Iceland.
I was gonna say like the North Pole, like that's a continent of some kind.
Listen, I am happy to say that I've represented the highest.
Antarctica. I got it.
I got the
Took me a while.
highest hotel in the world. Mother Earth is a client of ours at Everest. You have to go to Lukla and go to Namche and fly in. It is the last stop before base camp at Everest.
And every time you go there, you have to wear PPE of oxygen, I assume.
Yeah, well, try to fly. Don't fly into Lukla in an airplane. Come in by helicopter because if you hit the end of the runway, it's a brick wall, and if you make a mistake this way, you fall off a mountain. It is the most dangerous airport in the world, according to National Geographic.
Have you flown into it?
I flew into it on a helicopter.
Only helicopter.
We came in on a helicopter.
You figured this out.
We figured it out. We do it in advance.
Good
I
call.
represented the Sherpa family, some of the oldest Sherpa families in the world. So
that's amazing.
They knew the answers.
That's cool, man. I kind of want to have you back on to talk about more.
I'm always available. Thank you.
Real quick, talk about our sponsors, Claim Titan. If you haven't checked out Claim Titan, CRM designed specifically for public adjusters, just keeps getting better. I got a new video that's going to post next week on some of the new updates that are coming out. Building Experts Institute, if you haven't checked that out yet, there is online, go at your own pace, real in-depth education that can help anybody that's in this industry. Contractor, public adjuster, insurance adjuster. We have Xactimate courses, levels 1 through 3, on top of dealing with engineers. We don't have anything about outside of the U.S. yet. I know who to go to now. Hook Agency, if you're a roofing contractor and you need a marketing firm. Hook Agency is so damn good. They got me to get a tattoo at a roofing convention, and it's horrible. And I'm terrified of needles. That's how good they are. American Policyholder Association is always trying to uncover fraud committed by insurance carriers and prosecuting against that. They have their own team of investigators that are ex-FBI investigation teams doing a lot. If you suspect that there might be fraud on your claim, go to apassociation.org. And then there is Huggins Law. I'll let Remington have one.
Yeah, I'll just say real quick, we have a big announcement. We are expanding to Australia here in the next couple of weeks. So we look forward to that.
All right. We'll see you guys next Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern.
See ya.
Peace out.
Take it.